Public schools must set the standards for private schools. Review policy that is anti-development. Primary education is best handled by the states and not the local government areas or the UBE at the federal levels. They should leave primary education to the state government. They should give, just like what, they should give us the money. They should stop keeping the money because they don't account for it. We don't see the primary schools in the states. They should take it away from the constitution and put it squarely in the hands of the state government that have the capacity. Because once that fundamental, the foundation fails, then every other thing will fail. That's why we think that they should leave primary school for the state government. Free and compulsory education is not negotiable, but we must also take away those things that make it difficult for parents to send their children to school. Education should be made attractive by government providing the enabling environment for job creation. Education is expensive, but ignorance is a lot more costly. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, sir. Wonderful position placed there by His Excellency Right Honorable Chibuike Amici, Governor, Rivers State. Well, we have to run along now. We are supposed to finish this event in the next 30 minutes. Thereby, I crave the indulgence of every person that will come up here to please keep their thoughts down to possibly 5 minutes. At this time, we call on Dr. Modupe Olateju, the CEO, Education Partnership Center, Lagos. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much. Well, if I'm going to speak for 5 minutes, that means I'm going to have to cut out all this beautiful protocol that I had just nicely listed out. And I'm just going to have to leave it at good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, your excellencies here present. Thank you very much for the honor and the privilege. Thank you to the Progressive Governors Forum for the honor and the privilege of being here today. It is a very distinguished gathering of people, and it is certainly an honor and a privilege to be here. I think also I would like to commend you simply because in Nigeria today we don't often speak of politics and thought leadership in the same sentence, but you have chosen to do it. You have chosen to organize this forum. This is the second, I understand, and this represents thought leadership in the education sector. Again, I would like to commend you for that. Thank you very much for putting this together. There is I don't know whether we're familiar with the story of Alice in Wonderland. It's a story that I love very much. And at a point in this story of Alice in Wonderland, she approaches a cat, animal cat. She is lost, and she says to the cat, "Could you please tell me which way to go from here?" And the cat says, "Well, yeah, no problem. Where do you want to go?" And she says, "Nowhere really. I mean, it's not important where I want to go. I can go anywhere." And the cat says, "Well, that's fine, because any road will take you there." And what is the point of that little anecdote? The point is that it is important for us to know where we're going as a nation. It is important for us to have events and gatherings like this that actually help us to take a very strategic view of where we're going as a country, what we can do in the states that we currently lead, and how we can make a difference in this nation. I think that when I talk about bird's eye view and about strategic leadership, I'm reminded of the philosophy of Nigeria's education. I don't know how many of us have had the opportunity to read the minutes of the 1969 Curriculum Conference. I have to say that the only place that I found that document is in a library, the bottom shelf of a library in the Institute of Education, University of London. But those were the minutes of the Curriculum Conference that established what we know as the Nigerian curriculum today, and formed the basis of that which we refer to as our policy on education. It also is supposed to guide our thinking in education, guide our resource provision as well. And I think that this is a really important document, and this is also a really important time for us to think whether this philosophy is still fit for purpose. Do we need to go back and start rethinking our philosophy of education? 1969 was a time of crisis in this country. Again, we can say that we're still in crisis, perhaps even more so than in the last 20 years. Do we need to start thinking again about what we want our children to be? Do we even know what we want to see in 2050? When you say this is a Nigerian child, what does that mean? What should you be able to see? Does this present us with an opportunity to begin to think about that? The answer lies with you. But I'm just going to touch on a few topics. And those topics I'm not going to belabor because the very erudite guest lecturer has spoken extensively about these issues. And I'd like to say thank you again to Governor Amechi for your own comments as well, very well researched. And so I'm not going to go into much detail. I'm going to try as much as possible to focus I think I have 4 minutes left, on what we need to do. What should we really be prioritizing in the education sector? We know already that we're in crisis. We don't need anyone to tell us we're in crisis. Switch on CNN, you know that we're in crisis in Nigeria. Switch on NTA or Channels TV, you know that we're in crisis. What do we as duty bearers then need to focus on? First of all, we have to ask ourselves critical questions about education. We know that there is a sect in this country that believes that Western education is evil. But the reality of it is that we don't need to be focusing on what the world calls Western education, because education is simply a way by which people get better. It's simply a way by which a society improves. There is opportunity for us to focus on our own homegrown education, what works for us as a nation, and what will propel us into the future that we want for our country. And so we need to think very deeply about education. And we also need to think about perhaps commissioning studies on the economic value of education. For every child that is not in school today, for every child that is in school but is not learning, there is a cost element. And it is important for us to begin to prioritize estimating what that cost is so that we can begin to put our money where our mouth is. Insecurity, we have spoken extensively about insecurity today. Naturally, if schools are not secure, children will not go. And therefore, we need again to start thinking about the notion of this thing called school. What is a school? Is it a place? Is it a setting? Can you have a school in a home? We have to start thinking about it. There were some excellent statistics that the erudite guest lecturer presented to us when he was speaking about the colossal amounts of monies that would be required if we are going to get all children into what we currently call school today. And therefore, we need to ask ourselves, is there a role for technology? Do we all need to be in physical spaces? The children, let me not call them children, the young people in our universities today, if we are to look at the examples of other countries, technology is solving a major problem when it comes to infrastructure and facilities. Don't we need to begin to put more funding into ensuring that we can connect our children and our young people to using technology and provide them with spaces that way? That's just something for us to think about. And if perchance we do need to provide physical spaces, and I agree that we do, then don't we have the opportunity to think out of the box? And I ask this because I live in Lagos, and Sunday in Lagos is incredible. The number of people that are out on the streets going to church. Same thing on Friday. But I noticed that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those massive buildings, some of them sit 5,000, 10,000 people, are empty. Is there a role for partnership in all of this? Is there a way by which we can harness these infrastructure, working with these religious institutions to house our children and to provide them with schooling on a day-to-day basis? Again, these are just questions. Now, I want to talk about curriculum very briefly. You see, sometimes, I'm a researcher, so I travel across the country and I conduct research, and I talk to a lot of people in several states, APC states, non-APC states. And teachers say something to me very often. When I go to a school that is failing, the first thing I always hear is the children are lazy, they don't want to learn. I have a fundamental problem with that issue. And that is because if you take a smartphone and you put it into the hands of that lazy child and you put a computer game on it, that lazy child will be absorbed for the next 3 hours.